and where they meet is on... There is no fighting. There is no fighting between Kirk and Picard. Captain's Pod, Stardate 511722.3. Welcome aboard a small Jefferies tube inside the Starship's Enterprise, and thank you for joining us as we take a brief shore leave from the world of CinemaSins to explore the universe of Star Trek. I'm your Captain Ian Whittington, and she's played one too many games of Parisi Squares. It's Ambassador Deneé Hughes.
I once spent like 2 months playing Sudoku. Just solid every day. I couldn't stop.
Drink? You didn't do anything else? Is this how you lost your last job? You don't have to answer that.
Okay, so you said Jefferies tube. We talk about this in the outtakes, but we are in very close proximity today, and it feels like when somebody comes over to your side of the desk, it starts touching your things.
You've got your little notebook and your pens set. You have like 3 pens set up in like a very specific order, and then your book, and then whatever you're working from, and then someone just comes over and moves everything and elbows you and stuff.
And puts their drink right where your hand goes.
Little ring that's on that.
It's going to be a strange episode today.
It's like when you're writing, you're right-handed, and some dick that writes with their left hand sits next to you, so your elbows are just
So the
clashing.
sin, as always, is
left-handed
left-handers.
people. Lefties. Where we usually record is unavailable because the entire deck is infected by the Commodore's infection. So we are in a tiny way. No, I'm going to leave that there. We're going to be talking from a tiny, tiny Jefferies tube. And today we'll be talking about Season 3, Episode 8 of Lower Decks, which is Crisis Point 2. Paradoxus.
Speaking of Crisis Point 2, we have 2 dogs that are in crisis and constantly needing Ian's attention.
I have a dog that is literally, it is a giant schnauzer climbing up my arm and pawing at my head, and I just gave him water, and now he's just left. He's just pissed off and left.
This is going to be chaotic, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, let's do it. So, now, Crisis Point 2, Paradoxus as an episode title. What do you think is going to happen? Are you confused?
I never get these right. I don't think I've gotten any of them right this entire season, based on the introduction. So I think that this one's going to have a portal with some gravity problems. I think that there's going to be gravity problems in this one. And I'm pretty sure someone's going to fall down in this one as well. That's my...
Just fall over?
Not necessarily for no reason, but they're going to fall.
Someone's going to push them?
All I'm seeing is people falling down.
Okay. Well... This is an interesting one because Crisis Point is an episode from Season 1 where Boimler is basically creating some Star Trek Starfleet fan fiction in the holodeck where he's the captain and does all kinds of adventures and whatnot. Mariner says that he's lame and then has like a nervous emotional breakdown and takes over the program and rewrites the movie so that she's the bad guy in like a Wrath of Khan sort of evil thing. And the entire episode is basically Lower Decks the movie, but with loads of the movie stereotypes. So they're sat in the middle of space and the opening credits keep knocking them out because they whoosh by, but they're all in the way of the credits. It's funny. So I'm guessing they're going to do something similar to that. It feels like, because this is Mike McMahon, when Rick and Morty do Interdimensional Cable, this is kind of the equivalent, but for Lower Decks. So they get to do something wacky on the holodeck where they throw all the rules out of the window. So obviously this is going to be a sequel to that, I believe.
So the sin, as always, is Windows in space.
Yes, and sequels. Cool. Well, with that, let's head over to the holodeck to watch Season 3, Episode 8 of Lower Decks, and we will see you in 10 forward. 2 to beam to just 3 toes. Welcome to 10 Forward, the part of the show where we grab a drink from the replicator and share our immediate thoughts and feelings on the episode we just watched together. Most important question first, what is your beverage of choice?
I can't think of anything that came from this episode. Why? Oh, algae water for me, please. Sentient.
It's sentient algae water. Deneé continues to drink the bodily fluids and just alive fluids of other things. I would like to have just a fresh hyper spray of whatever brought William back from the dead.
Yeah. we gotta talk about that.
Yeah, we do.
I'm kind of confused about that.
Okay, well, I have a lot to explain considering you don't know who William is. So this,
but first the whole episode.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly. So this,
so this.
Go, do it. You do the summary for the part 2 of something you haven't seen part 1 of.
In this episode of
Lower Decks,
Interdimensional Cable,
yes,
Rick and Morty,
it really is.
we basically have an adventure happening in the holodeck that has been magically programmed to do magical things that the magical plot needs to have happen for magical character development and have magical fun. But what's really happening is Boimler has a double that's evil. Mariner probably is realizing she has friendships. Tendi wants to be captain. Rutherford, that's right, robot guy?
Mm-hmm. Robot man, yeah, robot boy.
Turns out not to be a dick. And I think maybe they want us to wrestle with life and death slightly. All in under 20 minutes.
To be fair, when you say it like that, 20 minutes, they did cover a lot of ground, really, didn't they? Yeah. So, first of all, fantastic summary. I think you hit all of the points. How confusing was this? This is a common question because this is a direct reference. This series has referenced a lot of previous episodes. How confusing was this episode for you? It was confusing for me and I knew what was going on.
I mean, it wasn't really that confusing at all. Why would it be? Is it really confusing to you?
No, I don't. Maybe not confusing. Maybe it's very, very fast paced and it jumps around a lot because they had so much that they wanted to get to.
I think it was pretty clear. It's like, so the party splits up and so you kind of have A plot, B plot, but nothing really was too confusing. I'm not, maybe now I'm more confused now that I'm supposed to be confused.
No, I mean like the Vindicta stuff because you haven't seen that episode. You haven't seen the first one of these.
I don't even know what that means. But do I need to know what that means for this episode to be fun?
A little bit, because Mariner is talking about her Vindictaverse, and Vindicta is her character that she made in the first Crisis Point when she hijacked Boimler's movie and created this evil Vindicta character, and now she's mad at Boimler for making a sequel which wouldn't fit into her Vindictaverse franchise. I didn't know if that was confusing to you and why she was angry.
No. I don't think so. Maybe because you mentioned it before that there was this is the second one.
Okay, well that's great. Then that's good. Once again, the episode works because it works without knowing what happened last time. So that's great. I always worry about that.
I think I always think about all the references I'm missing, and because we watched this in the same space, I noticed your happy squeal multiple times with seeing either ships or references to events or whatever. And I'm like, I definitely don't get that, but I know we'll talk about it later. So
yeah, I mean, the episode starts with it's such a great start. It's balls to the wall, exciting. We get a new Romulan ship that looks like the fancy Romulan ships that are in Nemesis, which is the last TNG movie, and they're super duper cool. And then the Wayfarer comes in, which is the Sovereign class ship, which is that's what the Enterprise is, and it's what I have tattooed on my arm. And we got to see it animated, and it's on screen, and it looks so freaking badass. Like, this show is so pretty. They do such a great job animating it, and the Cerritos looks incredible, and I loved it so much. I'm a sucker. Deneé. Sucker.
So did you like this episode?
Okay, that's the question, isn't it? It had a very clear mission, which was to do a... You know what? No, I did like this episode. I really did. Because this entire episode was basically a send-up of Star Trek movies in general. So it kind of splits into two types. You have the really thoughtful, thinky ones, and then the ones that are super actiony. And that's where the kind of the A team and the B team are split and going off in different directions. And you have people that hate the direction that the movie is going and people that love the direction the movie is going, which is the Star Trek fandom. So I love it in that respect because I think it managed to reference every single Star Trek movie. And I can probably go through them as we go reference by reference, but there was one that I was like, it hasn't done that one yet. And then right at the end, I'm like, you son of a bitch, you managed to reference that one as well. So as a 20-minute explanation of here's everything wrong and right with Star Trek movies, and like the line that sums it up is when Mariner says, who cares if it's a bad movie? It's a movie about Starfleet and that's worth telling. And that's a great summary of Star Trek movies and why most Star Trek fans are just happy to have a Star Trek movie. They don't really care whether it's good or bad. We're just like, yay, Star Trek, let's go! Did you like it, Ambassador?
No. And then yes.
Did you like it more after my explanation?
No. It was during the watching of it. So when it first started, it was like, there's nothing at stake here for me because we're inside of a simulation. And so not only that, but Boimler created it, so nothing is surprising for him. So like it kicks off and it's going to be an adventure, and then it quickly shifts because he has to go for an evaluation, and we find out later he learns that he thinks his clone has died. At least if on official paper his clone dies, and so when he returns back to what's the room called? The holodeck, he is clearly like unwell and sad, and at first, I think it's maybe he had a bad evaluation and maybe something bad is going to happen with work. I don't know. But he's like not into it at all. So not only is the person who created the mission not into it, I'm also not into it. And Mariner's not into it. So I was like, how long?
How long can we all not be into it?
Exactly. Yeah. But then they kind of shift away and they start playing around with the plot. So then it's like, oh, the computer is creating new characters to give, I guess, Boimler something to do. So he's kind of more interested in this random distraction from his pain that he's trying to find meaning inside of. And later on in the show, we find out it was a death. And so you sort of realize that his distraction is more like grief and confusion, and he's searching for meaning. And I thought that was a really interesting way to kind of craft that. And then the other people, Tendi and Rutherford, we get to see Tendi do the things that I didn't know if we were going to get to see her do again, which is be this badass pirate. You know, what's her race again?
She's an Orion.
Yeah, so she's got this like history of being able to do these things, and we've seen it in previous episodes. And here she's applying her badassery to being a captain and realizing how strongly she wants to be taken seriously. And that was really fun too, because this program was meant for Boimler to be captain, but now suddenly is actually for Tendi. And that's really when the episode shifted for me to be fun to kind of watch. And then it's got the mystery at the end, which they make fun of. But this episode is so in on itself, which they usually are, but this is like super, super in on itself. It's making all of its own jokes. It's pointing out all of its own flaws, to the point where I'm so glad we're not having to sin it. First of all, like, I'm like, phew, this isn't an assignment, because it'd be really, really difficult when they're so in on their own inconsistencies or their own plot mechanics. And this is all about like writing a story and making fun of how you write a story. And I can handle that for so long, but after a while, it's like, okay, well then what are we doing? Like, what is this episode if we're just going to be making fun of? So it's a lot of references. I think it's a fun ride overall, but it's, to me, it was kind of a filler episode. And I think it was probably just meant to move a little bit of the more emotional stuff for each character. Like, I think it like was supposed to give a little more heart to Mariner and a little more depth to Boimler and a little more focus to the others. And I think it was a clever way also to see them with like the main, like the A team, you know?
Yeah, because this is actually them on even though it's a hologram mission, it's a fully fledged real main A-plot mission, which is on the holodeck pretty much the only way they're going to be able to do that with the B team, because it kind of defeats the object otherwise. The more I think about it, the more I like this episode. And I did initially think, oh, we're doing Crisis Point again, so is this just going to be a filler episode, and is this just an excuse to play with some toys? But I kind of think each episode they are focusing on being more episodic, and while it references stuff in the past, they're not doing too much of the running themes and the running arcs like the really serialized shows are. This is much more Strange New Worlds than it is Discovery or Picard. But I do see what you mean, especially with how fast and quick the references come at you. It's hard to not see it as reference fest, especially when you've got 13 movies that they're clearly trying to reference. And but I do love that they're trying to talk about the whole of Star Trek movie subculture, because Star Trek's kind of generally accepted to be on the TV screen is when it's at its best, and that's where it belongs, with weekly storytelling, Alien of the Week stuff. And then the movies are so hit and miss. It's so dependent on the director and kind of just what they're going for with the movie, that there's no guarantee you're going to have something that is kind of true to what Star Trek should be. It's like pretty much 50-50 at best. But you said something really, really interesting where I was like, man, have you seen Star Trek 5? Because you accidentally quoted it. When you were talking about Boimler exploring his pain, like that search for God that Kittia that he's searching for, and the followers and the acolytes, and then trying to understand his pain and find meaning in it. That is all Star Trek 5. And Star Trek 5 is the most notorious Star Trek film going. We've seen it. Go over to cinemasins.com. Yeah, CinemaSins on YouTube, whatever. And we've seen that one to heck and back, because it's the most sinful Star Trek movie. But you almost said this word for word. It's a quote from Cybok, which is Spock's brother that we don't know about until this movie. And he says, "Let us explore your pain together. Each man hides a secret pain. It must be exposed and reckoned with. It must be dragged from the darkness and forced into the light. Share your pain. Share it with me and gain strength from the sharing." And there was bits of that you quoted earlier. And I was like, have you seen that movie? Yeah, you were like, find his pain and share it.
What?
Yeah.
I must have blacked out.
I thought sure you said find strength in the pain as well. And I was like, you're quoting Cybok. That's weird.
That's scary, but also cool, because, I want to be one of those Vulcans, so. Not
this one, you don't. He's a Vulcan that's rejected logic and embraces emotions. He's the opposite.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I totally get what you mean about the self-referential stuff. I'm so glad we're not sinning this, because it's hard to sin a holodeck story because it's meant to be ridiculous, and most of the things we'd say Mariner is saying. And I think that's the only bit that gets a little bit tiring for me. Maybe this episode is. It's hard to not compare it to Rick and Morty, because Rick and Morty does the self-referential stuff so well, and Mariner is basically CinemaSinsing the entire way through. Oh, hey, you've got to have a love interest, and oh, here's the MacGuffin that moves the plot along. And what was the other one? Oh yeah, you can't say that many made-up words back to back, lady. She should write for CinemaSins.
The whole episode is just, would be good at CinemaSins. Would be good at
CinemaSins. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad that we got. So I think a lot of the stuff was a little bit I was just wondering when it was going to do something else. But then we did get to the other things and I had fun, but then it moved on so quickly to the next thing. Like you said earlier, it was kind of hopping around quite a bit. Because even our B plot with Tendi, they were going from portal to portal to portal. I said there was going to be portals.
Oh my God, you did.
Holy shit.
Holy shit, you nailed it.
What is wrong with me?
Time portals.
Oh my God.
To be fair, you predicted that 2 weeks in a row. If you keep predicting portals, eventually portals are going to happen.
But I did really like that they did do the Star Trek thing, Monster of the Week thing with the what was his name?
Knick-Knack. Rick-Rack.
Yeah. That was kind of exciting. So Mariner comes back into the holodeck after she realizes that her friend is in pain, from finding out about the clone's death, to sort of join Boimler in whatever he wants to do. And they decide to stay in the program and just see it through. And this strange character saves them, and then he ends up ripping off his cloak.
It's so great.
And he's just this massive creature that just kicks ass. And
third act Knick-Knack reveal.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. That was kind of fun for me when Mariner, she knows where she is in the story. Which is really ridiculous.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Boimler is back into it fully, just enjoying it for what it is. And I kind of realized I was too. And I guess as a watcher of content, we watch so much content, it's easy to sort of see both sides of our job in this episode, where we sin and we enjoy. And sometimes it's just instantly back and forth in one scene. And that's why I think ultimately this episode is one I like, but it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite so far.
Mm-hmm. No, I can see that. I get that. I think I love it the most for the overall discussion of Star Trek movies. I think that's where it saves it for me. But it like if you're not reading into that subtext, this is such a tricky episode to follow because it jumps around so much. And there's not a huge amount of laugh out loud moments. Like there's loads of pretty stuff on screen and adventure-y stuff and chases, but it's man, the heart-to-heart moments are really tricky because there's not a lot of time for them. Like, we just clip by so quickly.
But at the same time, I really like that moment when Tendi just sort of like stood up for herself really strongly with Rutherford, and she's like, you're not taking this seriously. And why would he? He's in a holodeck having a good time dismantling a bomb that has no...
La 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 la.
There's nothing at stake. But then he realizes what's at stake is that Tendi needs someone to take her seriously on that level, and how quickly he's like, fuck yeah, I'm in here with you. That was a really tender moment for me. I really liked that.
I love that as well. And he's like so oblivious, but then when something is pointed out to him, he's like, oh, ride or die, I'll be there for you, well, let's get it sorted. But he just has no like social skills or empathy, like active empathy to like actually seek this stuff out himself. But then when it's pointed out, he's all there. And that was a great moment. It was nice to see Tendi get a bit of development as well, because she's my favourite, and admit to herself that she wants to be a captain. Like, she's not going to be just a science officer. She actually wants to go the command route. So her, like, route is the most interesting for me. And I think she's the one most likely to get promoted and move on or something.
Plus, there was that badass shot where she threw her bike into the vehicle and then did a backflip, like, dive thing over the explosion. That we got to see twice because we went back in time.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
She gets a ton of awesome action stuff. I love Tendi. Right, let's quickly do Boimler's clone. In Star Trek The Next Generation, as all things lead back to, there is an episode, and I should have saved this for Trek or Triction, where Riker returns to a planet that he'd visited on a previous starship to basically recover some logs that they left behind, because there's only one window every 14 years or something where they can beam down and do some science and shit. So it's been 14 years since he was last there. The Enterprise gets sent there to collect the logs. He beams down there and finds himself, but it's himself from 14 years ago, because when they escaped the planet, he was duplicated and a version of himself was left behind.
How?
Transporters.
So the transporter left behind part of him?
No, the transporter duplicated him.
Why?
Because transporters are murder machines, that's why.
No, was it like a purposeful decision that it made? Or was it accident?
No, so the thing that stops you from beaming up and down to the planet, that was starting to kick back up again, and it created some interference and split the transporter beam. So half the signal bounced back down to the planet, and the other half made it up to the ship.
But he's still a whole man?
Still a whole man, because the transporter's just reconstituting you from what it knows.
What is happening?
Transporters should never exist. You die. You enter a transporter,
but listen, I really want one because it would make travel so much easier.
Well, you wouldn't know any difference.
And I wouldn't know
you wouldn't know any different, but you would die and be remade.
Every time.
Every time.
How many of me would there then be if they're duplicating everywhere?
No, they're not. Just the one.
Just the one on a specific
planet.
Unless
there's a freak planet accident
Which is what happened with this one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So he's left behind for 14 years, and because they have Riker, they don't look for him. So he's like, why didn't anybody come to find me? And they're just like, we had Riker, like, you're fine. So he's like got this big beard. I mean, they don't get into fisticuffs. They don't get into fisticuffs, thank goodness. Good.
Is this not the right time for that
music?
No,
it's the right time. It's just right next to me.
Welcome to doing this show right beside me.
It is in my face. Usually your mic like kind of zones that out for me, and nope, it's in me. Anyway, so transporter accident, and yeah, so the other Riker goes off into the world and eventually becomes evil. So last season, almost exactly the same thing happens. There's an accident where Boimler gets duplicated and his double is left on the Titan with Riker, and just takes his place on there, and our Boimler returns to the Cerritos. And here we go. And I completely forgot he existed until he died in this episode.
Okay, but he doesn't actually die, and there's like a secret organization. It's probably the same organization that Rutherford had his implant with.
That sounds right. Yeah, that would make sense.
And they have secret comm badges. And how badly do I want one of those?
You want one of the black comm badges? One of the dark ones? Yeah, of course you do. So Section 31, really, really quick. They're like the secret police. They're really, really shady. They're like the Tal Shiar for the Romulans, but the Federation version of the Tal Shiar. So they do all of like the secret undercover shit. I'm sure that they are experimenting on the Rutherford stuff. And yeah, so now William is working for Section 31, and they have black comm badges as introduced in... I think the black comm badges were introduced in Discovery, I think. I'm not too sure.
Okay, so in the future, we're going to have an episode where our Boimler accidentals his way into the secret police.
Oh, and he will love it. He will absolutely love being in Section 31.
Well, I think he'll be fucking freaked out.
Well, yeah, but he'll just be like geeking out a little bit as well. It's like, I didn't think you guys were real, but you are.
But then they would know that he's not the real Boimler.
Who would?
I'm sorry. And they would know that he's not the clone Boimler.
The clone Boimler. Yeah, got it. Yeah, no, I was fine with that. I think that was cool. It was good to bring back Twin Boimler. I'm sure there's going to be some drama that kicks off there. Right. Anything else you wanted to say about what you loved in the episode?
Well, we had a special guest appearance on this one. Actually, there was two, but one of them was controversial, and the other one is like, ooh.
Let's do the most important one first. Punk not on a bus.
I thought you were going to say the horse.
The horse that eats Boimler. And yeah, so they go back to 1982 or whatever, and they meet some punks, and one of them clearly has a boombox and is an homage to Kirk Thatcher, who played the original punk on the bus in Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. Yeah, The Voyage Home.
Don't look at me, I have no idea.
The one with the whales. And there was a bit of like not controversy, but somebody tweeted at him and was just like, hey, why didn't they get you to voice this character? And he was like, well, they didn't ask me. But I'm like, he's been in Picard. Like, he got a cameo.
He's fine.
He's okay. He's in the new Marvel film, so he's doing fine. The directed-TV Marvel film, anyway. But yes, the bigger cameo, the one that was really, 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 really fun, we got Sulu.
Did you know that was going to happen this episode? Oh, you got to be surprised.
I was surprised. Finally, there's a cameo in the show, and I haven't been spoiled on it. Yeah, awesome cameo.
And a really good scene.
Really, really powerful. Really good.
Essentially, Boimler dies. So in the holodeck, he is sort of distraught that his holodeck created people lead him to a disappointing end.
Surprise!
And so he like climbs inside of this, I don't know, maybe it's like a condensed energy or something, and it gets really hot, and he dies or something, and is eventually resuscitated in the sick bay. But his consciousness apparently
wandered off somewhere.
This moment where he is in a farm in where was
Idaho.
Yeah. Where Kirk was supposed to be. I don't know. Yeah. Explain this to me, because I'm sure it's a reference to the things and the things.
So when I said that there was one movie they hadn't like referenced yet, it was Generations, and I was like, you son of a bitch. So Generations, oh man, they had to find a way to get Picard and Kirk to play together, and so they created this thing called the Nexus, and it's a thing that the bad guy is trying to get back to, because it shows you a dream world where you can live wherever you want to live. But the only way to get there is that he has to kill a ton of planets to adjust the course. He has to kill a ton of suns to adjust the course of the Nexus to intersect with a planet, but it will blow up that planet, and that's what they're trying to stop. So anyway, Picard gets sucked into the Nexus, and so does Kirk at some point, and they meet. And where they meet is on... There is no fighting. There is no fighting between Kirk and Picard. Well, there is, but no, like, fisticuffs. And they meet on...
For those of you at home, he has now said fisticuffs at least 12 times.
50 cups. 50 cups? That too. 50 cups. So yeah, where Picard meets Kirk is on this farm barnyard thing in Idaho, where Kirk is happily with his girlfriend or something like that. And yeah, that's what that is. So it's a reference to Generations. So obviously we go up to this barn and it says Kirk on the box and we're like, we're going to get a Shatner cameo. And I was like, I kind of don't want a Shatner cameo. And it was perfect because Boimler thinks he's going to get Kirk as well. Sulu turns up and he's like, oh, much better. It's Sulu. I was like, oh, the shade.
Do you think there was a Shatner shout out with the name of that moon that was like Shatanar or whatever?
The moon that was called Shatanari? Yes, I think that was a Shatner shout out. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But no, it was great. Like Sulu, George Takei is super active in the Star Trek community. He's still going to conventions. He is such a positive voice. He's incredible and deserves all of the focus and attention. And more to George and less to Bill. Thank you. But no, it was great. It was awesome. And that must have been so great for Boimler to meet Sulu. And so great for like the cast as well, to know that they're working with all of these Star Trek heroes, legends, and cameos as well. It's so great. So much fun.
Before we go on, this might be a good transition to the sinning section of the program. Was all that happening in one holodeck?
Yes. Do you want me to explain how holodecks work?
Can you?
Yeah.
Does it just like create some sort of like because they're not like the biggest rooms.
Nope.
And they're in like completely different realities within the room. Okay, go on. You look incredibly confident.
I'm bursting. So it's all solved by
drugs.
Drugs would definitely help. If I tell you that the floor moves, that will help, hopefully.
No, it doesn't help.
So
that sounds terrifying.
While you think you're moving, you're not. It gives you the illusion that you're moving. So the floor moves beneath you with every step that you take, which means that you can walk 100 miles and never leave the spot that you're standing on.
But wait.
And then all it does is project whatever's in front of you. It projects that all around you, and then changes the projection around you based on which direction you're walking.
Okay. So does it like change how gravity works in the room?
It can.
Just like so, like when Teddy's on a bike, for example, she's just sitting still, but she's in the air.
Yep.
And she's grabbing nothing.
No, because it has physicality. You can touch things, so you'll be on a physical bike.
So it's a replicator in there too?
There's a replicator in there. So holodecks
my God, this is so dangerous.
So dangerous. Holodecks are transporters mixed with replicators. So
all the people that are replicated into the holodeck are real?
Nope. Well, that's a debate. Because, I mean, you can physically touch them, but they're light that's given physical form by force fields.
But they're replicated.
So this table is real, doesn't make it alive. When it gets sentience and intelligence, then it's alive. So it's all real. They're just not real people because they have no brain. They just have a program, a basic program that's telling them how to react in certain situations.
Data would have something to say about that.
Data is a more complex brain. He's not just a input-output thing, although all of us are to some extent. The problem I have is that the holodeck has got to be linked to each person's perspective in order to work, because Tendi would have to see... Tendi goes round a corner, and what Boimler would see is Tendi going round a fake corner, and then eventually... If Tendi just walked 100 miles into the distance, Boimler... Eventually, she would get to the wall, and Boimler would then see a projection of her getting smaller and smaller and smaller in the distance. But from Tendi's perspective, she's actually seeing a new realm. So it's hard when you get more than one person in the holodeck. That's when it gets a bit ropey. And I don't understand. This is why holodecks are tricky. How's your brain?
I think that they definitely use sheets.
Yep, I think that's more
just descend from the ceiling and like give them some sections. Because
that makes more sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm an engineer, now. So.
So I want to really, really quickly see if they did tick off all of the movies, and I may miss something. But the motion picture, when when he goes inside the rock god thing, and it says Kitty Ya, but it's then Kitty Right. That is a reference to Star Trek 1, the motion picture, because there's this alien that's doing all kinds of nasty stuff, and it turns out this alien, this super intelligent alien, is actually it come from Voyager, which is a probe that we've sent out into the solar system. And the alien thing is called Vija, and it's because they've scrubbed off the O and the E. So all along, they could have known from the off that they were following Voyager when it was Vija. Anyway, that's Star Trek 1. Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, basically that whole chronogamy thing, that's the Genesis device, which is a weapon of mass destruction. Star Trek 3 is the one that I don't know that there's a reference to, because that's the search for Spock, and they don't really do much. Star Trek 4 has the punk on the bus. Star Trek 5 was all about the God and share your pain and find your pain and the acolytes. Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country, there's an assassination attempt. Well, actually, that whole movie is about assassinating the president and destroying the Federation, which is what they go back in time to do in this one. Generations, we have the Nexus. First Contact, there's time travel, so that's close enough. Insurrection? No, I don't think there's an Insurrection reference, other than... No, I don't think there is. And then Nemesis, the little bomb thing that the Romulan has to blow everyone up, they have one of those in Nemesis. So I'm sure the other two movies are referenced in there somewhere, but I'm missing them. I'll have to rewatch it again. But whew, any final thoughts, Ambassador?
I don't think I have anything else.
One last final thing. We got the Defiant, which was the ship at the end that was going to pick up. No, sorry, that was what we saw at the end with the cliffhanger with dead Boimler that was now alive. The ship.
Oh yes, this is the sound you made when you saw that.
So I don't know what the name of that was a great noise that I did not make. I don't know what the name of that ship is, but it is a Defiant class ship, and that comes from Deep Space Nine, and they're so cool. I love that ship. Anyway, more ships. Love it. Okay, with that, it is time to head over for ReSInstance's Futile battle stations, everyone.
Warning. Warp core collapse in 10 seconds.
This is the part of the show where we re-engage our sin brains, remind ourselves that no TV shows without sin, even our beloved Star Trek. Even when it spends the entire episode in a holodeck, and even when it spends the entire episode sinning itself. Ambassador, you first.
I think I would just start off by saying, like, this opens up on the perspective of the captain of the burrito, and then it shows the Romulan's ship interior, but this is actually a holodeck based around our characters, and so I don't know why we're seeing them, and maybe it's because it's a movie and I didn't understand that, but obviously they're trying to make it seem like this is an actual thing that's happening, but our characters are nowhere to be seen inside the holodeck that they're inside of.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because this is like watching I guess this is like watching an Avengers movie, but they're not following the Avengers. So it's like, hey, let's go to this coffee shop down the road and see what the local police are doing. And it kind of means that everyone is on board the Wayfarer, waiting for their cue in their own holodeck program. So there's like, let this play out, and then we swoop in. When really the hologram would the program would start when they swoop in to save the day. That's a great point. That's a great thing to sin. My first one is a very nitpicky one for Star Trek fans everywhere, is that they went to 2161, which is the birth of the Federation, which we know, I think I'm getting this right, that Captain Archer and his crew from Enterprise are all there in 2161, and they're all present, and we didn't get a cameo, we didn't get to see anyone. I wonder if the plan was to go there and to get a cameo, and it didn't work out. And maybe they'd done the animation, maybe they'd done something, and they had to stay in 2161. But how often are they going to get a reason to go back to the 2100s, 200 odd years in the past, to get a cameo from Enterprise? And they couldn't do it. They couldn't squeeze it in. So it's going to still be a holodeck program or something random. But it felt like the perfect opportunity, and I'd be interested to know did a schedule conflict happen? Did something just go wrong where we missed out on a cameo?
We'll never know. I guess you answered this one, but at one point in time, Mariner leaves the holodeck to go to her review, and the cloak that she was wearing inside the holodeck goes out with her. And I guess that's because it's all replicated?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right, because it's replicated, and sometimes they will wear costumes into the holodeck as well. But it's very hit and miss what's allowed to leave the holodeck and what isn't. Like, there's a great early on. This might be like episode 3 or 4 of TNG. Wesley is having a snowball fight in the holodeck, gets covered in water and snow and whatnot, throws a snowball, and it leaves the holodeck and hits Captain Picard. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And then he walks out of the holodeck and is still wet, is covered in snow and whatnot. And he actually, no, in a different episode, he falls into a pond and leaves the holodeck completely wet. So it's not holographic water. That's actually water that is being replicated and is real. It's interesting where the distinctions lie. I still think it's a little bit ridiculous that Boimler was genuinely... I know he's like going through some trauma and he's having a rough time, but he's genuinely trying to find the meaning of life in a holodeck program that he wrote, and at best is just the computer coming up with stuff on the spot. And Mariner mentions this, but Boimler is just... He's an intelligent dude, and yet... He's just like blinded by it and is like, hey, computer, what's the meaning of life? Like, just go to your quarters and answer that.
Yeah, he's a little delusional.
Okay, next up.
Mariner makes a very strong assumption that the character, so they're kind of like walking down this corridor and they're wearing their cloaks, and it's just before the Romulans jump out of like some sort of a side area, and the quote unquote sequence picks up. And this is when Boimler is kind of talking to these side characters that the holodeck had apparently created. And she's so incredibly confident when she's saying, you know, this isn't the sequence and these people are useless. And she's telling us what the show wants us to know, but she didn't make this entire story. She has no idea what Boimler actually programmed. And so I would probably try to sin how quickly she becomes the voice of the writer that wants to tell the audience what is going on so that they can quickly follow where they're wanting to go, when I don't think that she should have made that assumption that quickly.
I get that. Yeah, like, who knows? This could be exactly what Boimler wanted to happen and wanted to do.
Yeah, she was confident. Like, these are side characters. Like, you don't know that.
You don't know that. It is funny that, like, this movie is focusing... that Boimler gets stuck on a side quest, and yet that side quest is the entirety of Star Trek V. It's such a slam on Shatner's decision to like where to take that story. It's like, yeah, this is a side quest that they decided to make a movie out of. Like, why have they done this? I just want to know the logistics of making a map on a back that only works when you fold the skin flaps over. Because you have to rely on that person not losing weight, gaining weight. Like, those flaps are only going to fold a certain way depending on how flappy this man remains.
No, you just remove the skin.
Yeah, but if you remove the skin, how do you know where it's going to fold together?
Well, that's part of the fun, right? Like, if you're an evil, dark person, you just, murder this thing and then you just, like, skin fold.
I don't want to do this anymore. This has grossed me out.
Easy sin.
Go.
Throwing phasers.
I know. Sorry. I literally just threw Deneé's phone out of her hand. Yeah, throwing phasers, never do it. Riker does it to Beverly one time, and it's like, just stop throwing the phasers, please, enough.
They do it at the very beginning, and then when they go back in time, they replay that scene again, they throw them again. It's like, we could just send it twice.
Yeah, absolutely. Ding, again. They do it in Strange New Worlds as well, just handing out phasers to everyone. I assume there's a safety button, but still. Man, it's so hard to sin this show. I really don't have many more. I could probably... Man, if I was like sitting down and really sinning it, I'm sure I could find it. But
an easy one for me, I guess. It's actually the last. This is the last one I have. Why would anybody make part of their program being falling in fake love with a beautiful doctor person in front of their friends? Like, like in the so Boimler and his buddies are like gonna go solve the next part of this mystery, and Boimler is bummed and not really into it. So it makes that scene okay because he's not doing the love interest part. But you have Mariner in the background, like, okay, here we go, the big love scene. It's like, why is anyone excited to see Boimler hit on nothing?
So the in front of your friends thing, I totally get it. However,
I don't want to talk about what the holodeck is used for in private time. I'm just saying in front of your friends. That's the sin.
I wasn't even going to go there because that's obvious. Like the holodeck is 97% used for porn. Like that's just a fact. It just is. But if you think about it, you haven't seen Star Trek 5, but in Star Trek 5, there is an alien that makes out with Kirk, and it's completely bizarre. She's awkwardly lying on top of him. They kiss, and he gets a couple of kisses in that movie. And this is a movie that is directed, written, invented by Shatner in front of his friends. So I think it's kind of a nod that Boimler is doing the same thing that Shatner was doing as well. And it is strange. It's hard to not think, really. You wrote a kissing scene with a sexy alien in the movie that you're making for your character. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it's for the story. Of course it is.
Yeah, that's got a sin all over it.
Yeah, it really does. Like, I'm actually really pissed off. I didn't sin that in the CinemaSins video. I should have sinned that Shatner wrote, directed, and invented this scene so that an alien could kiss him, not Kirk. That's amazing. That's so great. Yeah, love it. I really love this episode. I think it's saying some really, really deep stuff about Star Trek fandom in general. I'm so conflicted about whether it works as an episode on its own, though, without the references and without the underlying metaphor. It's so tricky. But hey, it's 22 minutes. I think they do a great job.
As
overall.
a person who doesn't understand any reference, I thought it was okay.
Okay, cool. That's bizarre, but I love it. I'm glad you had a good time. 2 episodes left. I'm excited. Like, no more lower decks until next year, but we're getting another season, so that's exciting. Right. As always, thank you for listening, everyone. These graphics are mind-blowing from me.
And this horse will bite you from me.
And live long and Podsper.
Thanks for listening. Want to connect with the show? Our hailing frequencies are always open through captainspod@cinemasins.com. Like, comment, and subscribe on your podcast player of choice, and be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
Don't read my intro. Don't read my intro.
I'm not.
Okay.
Welcome to...
So, usually we are recording from the Dicer household.
No, the Sinterprise.
Sorry, the recording place where we usually record on the Sinterprise, the entire deck has been wiped out by a stomach bug. So we are now recording.
No. What's the clever one that would be from Star Trek?
Oh, it'd be like, so the one I put on Twitter was the Rigelian flu, because
Awful shit.
people always seem to get the Rigelian flu. Like they've gone to Risa and somehow instead of getting the Risa flu, they're getting the Rigelian flu.
Plus it says jelly. So.
Jelly. So Commodore Dicer has been completely wiped out and took out half of the ship with him, which is very inconsiderate. So we're now recording from the Jeffries tube on deck 9.
It is just as uncomfortable as you would imagine.
So we're just like sharing this one mic, going backwards and forwards in the Jeffries tube, which are super cramped. Yeah, so if this episode sounds weird...
Shit?
This is in the outtakes, so you've already put up with it.
But now it's all making sense.
Now it makes sense as to why it sounds like shit, yeah. But this does remind me of the episode of TNG called Disaster, where Captain Picard gets stuck in a turbo lift for the entire episode with 3 kids. And it's like they're a bit like kind of antsy to begin with, but then they all make friends and he commands that they stop crying, and they do stop crying because you listen to the captain when you're a child and you stop crying. So he makes one of them his like second officer, he makes the other one something else, and then the youngest kid he makes executive officer in charge of radishes because he had a science project based on radishes. Trek or Triction?
Trek or Triction. This is totally Trek.
Yeah.
Just based on your delivery and how much fun you had telling me about that. I do have concerns about how much you remember about Star Trek.
Oh, I can in that episode as well, Data loses his head, literally. Like, Riker has to remove his head and take it with him to engineering to fix all of the things. So yeah, that's good. And there's this really, really great moment where like there's this natural disaster that's hit the Enterprise and caused all of the things to go wrong. And Chief O'Brien is explaining exactly like what it is. And Deanna is out of her depth a little bit and says, "Oh, so it's like a quantum string." And O'Brien and someone else just looks at her and goes, "No." That's an entirely different phenomenon. And Tiana's just like, okay, I'll leave.
I'll just go back to my quarters.
Ow, your dog just licked me out of nowhere.
How did you say ow then?
It made me jump.
So now in the Jeffries tube, we have Ian, Deneé, and Reese's.
And one dog. Oh, dog has left. Wait, what does he know that we don't?
Have I ever told you about the adult that told me not to cry?
No.
It's really fucked up. So, you want me to tell you the fucked up story?
Please.
Well, there's the obvious ones of like adults, just like regular adults, like my parents or whatever, saying, stop crying, don't cry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was because, they were like just not wanting to deal with whatever trauma I was experiencing. Mm-hmm. But I was told to not cry when my dead cat was handed to me.
Wait.
So that was one.
Why was your dead cat handed to you?
You'll have to ask the adults in charge of that moment.
This is something I wanted to do last week, but it was tricky because we were on a time limit, I think, or whatever.
Which we are on today.
Which we are also on today, but less so because we're not live, because everyone's poorly. But an extended trailer for season 3 of Picard was released last week. And what I want you to do is use your prediction powers to guess what were the big moments in the trailer from season 3. And I think all you know so far is that the vast majority of the cast is returning.
Well, first of all, I'd like to point out that the 2 dogs, one is in charge of radishes, the other...
Yes. Eating them?
The other is first officer or whatever. Something is very strange with them right now. I don't know what it is, but they are like super activated. I don't know what it is. It's distracting. Okay, here's what I don't know. Almost anything. I do know that Worf has white hair.
Yeah. Because
I saw an image because people can't stop being excited about it and sharing it with their friends, which I understand.
Fuck those people. But
I am really curious because the excitement of it echoed through 3 different places in my life. One was in work.
Oh, yeah, that was...
Then, of course, just like with you and a couple of other, Trekkie friends. And then there was another group of people that were just, they couldn't stop talking about their excitement of it. And of course, I saw some stuff on Twitter, not like visuals, but I saw like chatter essentially on Twitter.
I know. Can I just explain what happened really quick between me, Jeremy, and Jonathan? So we have a Captain's Pod channel at work, and Jeremy saw the trailer first and just went, holy shit, the trailer! And I'm just like, wait, I haven't seen it. And Jonathan's like, wait, I haven't seen it. So I go and watch it. And I reply, holy shit, that trailer. And Jonathan's like, I'm not going to watch it at all because I don't want to be spoiled. So Jeremy's like, quick, private channel. So he jumps onto like our private chat and is like, holy shit. And we both list exactly the same things in capital letters at the same time. And we nerd out and then go back to the Captain's Pod chat where Jonathan's like, I don't want to be left out. I watched the trailer. And we all just nerd out about it. It was a fun trailer. Really fun.
My first question.
Yes.
Do I know the things that everyone's excited about? Like, sometimes you'll be like, oh, it's a ship. And I'm like, I don't know what that means.
I don't know what the Agamemnon looks like. Yes. There's only one huge one that you wouldn't be able to guess.
Okay. I'm going to guess that Riker and Troy's daughter joins them.
Prediction number 1.
I'm going to guess that there's a new android.
Prediction number 2.
I'm going to guess that... I'm trying to remember what happened in like the previous season.
To see if there's any callbacks.
Yeah. Like, what's the big thing that brings everybody together? Is it that Queen Borg comes back, Agnes returns, and she's just like, you know what? It was kind of nice, and that's just not how shit goes.
Get out of here now.
Or she's just like fully Borgified, and she wants to take everybody down, and so they have to like get the crew back together to save the day because they're, for whatever reason, the only ones. Oh, Wesley could come. I don't know how to predict anything. I wish I had time to think about it. I'm just going with what flashes in front of my face.
That's how your predictions usually work.
In my imagination. Oh yeah, Worf's kids coming back.
Oh, that would be cool.
Oh, I guess that's not happening.
Oh, shit.
Fuck.
It wasn't in the trailer, at least. Sorry. I need to not react to your predictions. I'm so bad at this game. Prediction number 3, Worf's kids come back.
Spock comes back.
Nope, can confirm. No. I mean, that would be really cool, though. But it would have to be either Zachary Quinto Spock or Ethan Peck's. Ethan Peck? Is it Ethan Peck? Ethan Peck.
My boyfriend?
Spock. Yeah, him. Mm-hmm. He doesn't know that yet, but Yeah, or him aged up. That would be really fun.
I know one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
LeVar Burton's daughter is going to be one of the people.
Yeah, did you see that?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I did retweet it as
You
well.
sure fucking did,
Yeah,
Captain.
I did. So she's actually going to play Geordie's daughter.
It's so great. I'm so excited.
Perfect.
Yeah, that I'm really looking forward to seeing because I enjoyed her on Critical Role quite a bit. She's
She's
played a
fun.
really fun character.
Mm-hmm. She's really, really fun. We like Mika Burden. She's great. Huh? Nice.
Security alert. Someone's trying to get into your account.
You should probably stop that.
But it's me.
You should still stop that.
But it's me. I've been left alone in the Jeffries tube. I'm all alone, floating through space. Technically, I'm not floating. I'm in the Jeffries tube with fake gravity. But also, technically, I'm in a ship and that's floating through space. But technically not floating, it's propelled. Space is fucking scary. I'm probably gone. Space is fucking scary. But if a card is here, it'll be alright. Oh, space. You're fucking scary. I'm all alone in the Jeffries tube. Oh, here comes Captain. Here he comes. Welcome back to the show, everybody. But don't wonder for one moment how long it's been since we recorded last. We maybe got a little distracted by some Pillsbury treats that went in the toaster.
It's been a while.
And I may be covered in icing at the moment.
Deneé is apparently a child, and all I see out of the corner of my eye is her with her phone in one hand watching Twitch, and then this like raspberry toasty bake thing.
It's called a toaster strudel.
A toaster strudel that is just dripping jam down her arm. And I look down and there's just like a puddle of jam on the floor. There's a splodge on her knee. The dogs are just like, this is the best day ever, and just licking everything.
Did you see whenever I had to take the case off of my phone because I got icing dripped into the crevices of my phone?
It is impressive. She had to take the silicone case off of her phone because the strudel jelly had like eaten its way in, and she's like, I'm just a mess.
To be fair, it was the icing, and it was on the top. It wasn't in the middle, But yeah, I feel like I'm a kid again right now. I'm super fucking sticky though. So I'm going to try not to touch the microphone.
I really don't want to be anywhere near you because you are. I can see how sticky 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 you are. I can see.